So when Martha was a baby, she was born prematurely. She was very small, and then she was very poorly throughout that whole first year. We lived in London at the time, and we kept seeing different doctors and health visitors all the time. But we moved up to Staffordshire when she was about 1, wasn't she, when we moved?
Less than that.
Yeah. And we started to see the same health visitor every time and the same paediatrician. And when she was about 2, the paediatrician said to me, she said, there are some very rare syndromes out there. It could be that Martha's got something. So we had this appointment with the paediatrician, and I got back home and I sat at my computer and I just put into Google rare syndromes, failure to thrive, small, all these markers that the paediatrician had spoken about, and I just put them into the Google search engine, and the Williams Syndrome Foundation popped up, and all the kids look like Martha. For part of you, it's, you're devastated, you don't want your child to have that syndrome because you don't want your kid to have a disability. But the other part of, for the other part of you, is sort of like hugely relieved that you've found out that you know what it is. And so we went to a geneticist, didn't we? And we had a FISH test, which is like a blood test, which confirmed that, Martha was missing DNA from her 7th chromosome, so she's got Williams syndrome.
I've been told.
You were diagnosed with Williams syndrome with 2.5.
Yeah, I was 2.
You were? You're 2.5.
I'm 13 now.
You are.
A gigantic teenager.
Gigantic teenager, yeah.
And I'm very goody sometimes.
You are very goody. The thing is as well, when they confirmed the diagnosis, it arrived in a 2nd-class letter.
With spelling mistakes.
And I was completely unprepared for that. I went to get the post and opened this letter, and then it's basically sort of saying, I kind of knew, probably deep down I knew, but also you still hope that your child hasn't got this condition, and so then suddenly this letter, 2nd-class letter, that was awful.
And the fact that we have that on a piece of paper and it's been tested means that people don't question. I think that's one thing where CAMS was very good. The fact that we've had the same paediatrician in Dr. Negritz for the last 10 years has been wonderful, because she's seen Martha all the way through that. And anything where you've got a continuity of care and support is really good. And we've had Judy for the same length of time since the first referral. So Judy's, first came when you were about 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And it's made a massive difference, because Judy quite often tells us what we know already, and that sounds terrible. I'm not sort of saying she's not telling us anything new, but she's there to sort of affirm what we think, to give us that support, to be able the confidence to be able to do it. And I think the key thing for me from Judy is that we've always said, and we do, and Martha knows, that you've got to live in the real world. Martha's got to live in the outside world, and we've got to treat you like we would any kid when it comes to being naughty or silly.
Yeah.
And, to try and normalise the behaviour and give you the strategies so that you can cope.
So Judy came out to see us right at the beginning, and she was brilliant, because back in those days I was just exhausted, and just trying to kind of cope with sort of day in, day out, and I think, like Darren was saying, I think Judy gave us some amazing strategies, and one of the things that really sticks in my mind that Judy said to me, and I've always quoted this because I found it so helpful right back at the beginning, and she said, forget it, you're the mum coping in a really, really difficult situation. If you've told your child off, that's fine, just let it go, you're the mum, it's fine, that's okay. And it was quite liberating when she said that. My initial experience was always really, really positive, but I think my initial thought when I heard about CAMS was I had a lot of reservations about it, really. And I think it was a bit old-fashioned. I think it's a little bit like how people feel when they think there's a social worker coming round. You're like, oh, I've got to hoover the house, clean the house, I'm going to get judged, And it wasn't like that at all. Well, Judy just came round, didn't she? And we had a nice chat, and a cup of tea and a cup of coffee, and that was it, really. And she just explained to us that her role would be to put strategies in place that would either help us deal with Martha, or Martha sort of to deal with who she was, and
I can do it properly now, can't I? Because I'm getting older every day, and that means that,
Yeah.
Now, one thing we have found is that when we think one thing's being solved, this is a roller coaster of special needs. You think you've got somewhere with one issue, whether that's talking at night until midnight and not going to sleep. You think you finally got it cracked. Something else is waiting, just queuing up.
But also just things, just little things like in the morning how to teach Martha to, look at herself in the mirror and do her own face, because otherwise I'm there and she's 13 and I've got the cloth like a toddler, washing her face.
You've got Marmite on your chops.
Actually, what you need is a bottle of Nivea and some cotton wool, and you need a nice. Judy suggested this the other day, and she said you need a nice photograph of you next to the mirror looking good. That's who you need to look like, and then you can look in the mirror and you can see if you've got Marmite chops. And if you have, you can make yourself look like Martha in the picture.
To be fair, I could do with that.
Daddy!
That to me has been the most difficult thing, I think, is just coping with the day-to-day. And I think it is exhausting when you've got a child with a disability. It is exhausting. Sometimes you're up till midnight and they're still talking or whatever. Martha isn't, and it can be really draining.
Yeah, I mean, it is that day-to-day stuff and the day-to-day advice. It's also the longer-term bits about understanding and sort of accepting, but having longer term strategies for so it is little individual bits but in the framework of a longer strategy.
I think the only thing I would say is it's not a cure, so don't go looking for CAMs and in the hope that they're going to tell you some amazing advice that's going to like undisable your child. They can't do that. It's not a cure, and it is just advice, and it works two ways. Don't feel like they're telling you what to do with your child. Nobody's telling you
That's true.
how to be or not be with your kid. It's just looking for strategies to help you cope.
And I think the issues with the service probably are issues that you guys know all too well, and that is that there's just not enough of it. And I think that we've been lucky, and I do say to people, we've had CAMS support. I said it in the health meeting just yesterday. We had CAMS support for the last 10 years, and we've been very lucky.
I just really trust her opinion. I think she's, she doesn't always get it right, but she's so kind of wise, and she's so experienced. She's had people with, she's dealt with. That sounds a bit harsh, but she's helped to look after people with autism, with learning disability, with conditions like Williams syndrome. I don't think she's ever met somebody with Williams syndrome before. But there's so many crossovers in sort of behavioural patterns that actually she's been brilliant. And to be able to tap into her knowledge and also just feel that she was there to help without judging us was brilliant.
That she's very good and she's very helpful and calm with my parents. Mummy and Daddy is
What did Judy always do for you every time she saw you? And even now when she comes to the holidays, stickers. Stickers in her bag, didn't she?
Full of stickers.
What kind of stickers were they?
Butterflies and shapes and everything.
Okay, well there were a few issues with and it's nothing to do with anybody's fault, changes to the psychiatrist. That we had about 3 or 4 in the space of a year or so. And then there were a few cancelled appointments and things as well. And it's also, I've got to say, it's not ideal being in Leek, as you guys have found out coming over here today, having to go all the way to Dragon Square, which is quite a trek. And not the easiest place to access, especially in traffic. So those are the 2 things that we have problem with your location. You stuck out far end of Newcastle for this part of the county. And there was a continuity issue, which I'm sure was for very good reasons. And Dr. Meddy seems great, so we're pleased he's been there for a while. Long way at last. Because the 2 guys we thought were really good too, but they weren't really there for very long. So that's been useful. And that's been the most difficult bit, I suppose. Yeah. The best thing is, the best thing in general with Martha's Healthcare, right across all of it, is that it's been relatively joined together. Now, I know that is something that doesn't happen when you're an adult. It's something that we're both worried about when Martha goes to that difficult sort of transition stage into adult care. It's something that should happen with adult care, but it doesn't.
That's a really good point, because I think, sometimes we'll have a meeting at the school and it's so useful because Judy will come to the meeting, the social worker will come, the paediatrician will come, the teachers there, school nurse, and actually in the hour that you're all sitting there, you can just sort so much stuff out, and then you've all done it, so you don't need to write loads of letters to each other and try and phone loads of different people. It's all kind of done and dusted.
Martha, what are you most proud of?
Mummy and Daddy. Tell me a lot.
Martha, what are you most proud of that you've done?
fire drills at school.
That was a big achievement for
Challenging.
you, actually.
Well, yeah.
That was.
Yeah.
So people with Williams syndrome have very sensitive hearing.
Yeah.
So Martha has a huge
High
anxiety
anxiety,
about
yeah.
fire alarms and fire drills.
They're up there, aren't they?
How do you feel about them now then?
She can
Are you
cope.
okay?
I can cope perfectly well with them now. If
You're okay.
the teacher
aren't you?
doesn't tell me, but when it goes off, I go, right, I know what that is, that's a fire alarm. I tell all the children in the class to get out, and the teacher smiles at me
Yeah.
for letting them know.
Martha, what did you say earlier that you said you wanted to be?
The supermodel.
Yeah, and
And to be ambassador.
Yeah.
So like Eleanor, my BFF, who's also like me, she's also an ambassador. So Eleanor tells me a lot about things that I don't actually know about it.
So Eleanor's got Williams syndrome, same as you.
And
hasn't
she's
she?
very crazy about stuff like me, and she's got a funny laugh, hasn't she?
Yeah.